Welcome to Virtual Antics, your go-to podcast for digital entrepreneurs, powered by Nendora.org and NG Virtual Assistant. We're here to guide you through every aspect of business, from networking to lead generation and so much more. Get ready to thrive in the virtual world with expert insights and our all-in-one solution, Nendora, where creating a digital business becomes a breeze. Let's dive in and revolutionize your business journey together. Welcome back to the Virtual Antics podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Guzman, and I have a very special guest with a really unique and amazing business. So I'll let him introduce himself, but welcome, Dave. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So excited you're here. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and about your really, really cool business? I love it.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. My name's Dave. I live in the Appalachian Mountains in the northwestern part of the state of North Carolina. I'm the founder and CEO of Firewalk Productions. And basically what we do is we create some of the most extraordinary, life-changing, paradigm shift corporate team building experiences in America.
That is so cool. How'd you get into that? And what exactly is firewalking?
Yeah, what is a firewalking, right? What the heck are we talking about here? This is literally where, you walk across hot coals. The act itself has been around for over 1,000 years. Tony Robbins brought it to the West many years ago, some 30 years ago, and he kind of perfected it, if you will, because he uses it as a leverage point in his 4-day event, which is called UPW, the Unleash the Power Within, the Firewalk experience. So in that 4-day event, he does it on day one. And so he puts you in a room at about 2:00 in the afternoon. And the next thing you know, 10 hours later, he gets you out there and he does the Firewalk somewhere around midnight. And it's literally one of the most life-changing experiences anyone can ever go through. It's phenomenal. It's exhilarating. It builds confidence, self-worth, self-confidence, all of it. And when I did it back in 1995, my life was so transformed, and I saw it work on all these other people as well, because I was in an event back in 95 with him, and there were 3,500 people. So it was really a beautiful thing to take part in. And then, where I really found the magic for me was the next day after the Firewalk. We had 3,500 people were coming into day two, and the foyer, we were standing there with 3,500 people getting ready to go into the venue. And I was watching everybody after this Firewalk the night before, and it was phenomenal. I had never witnessed anything like it. People were laughing and they were crying and they were hugging and they were connecting humanistically, unlike anything I'd ever experienced. And so I was like, what happened? I mean, is this the result of the Firewalk the night before? I mean, is this did we drink the Kool-Aid? I mean, what the heck's going on? And I found out that Firewalk was literally, I thought I was suffering from terminal uniqueness, right? I thought I was the only one feeling this extraordinary the next day, but I wasn't. Everybody else was as well. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off. And then I met one of Tony's trainers, and he was talking to me about what's going on and that they use hundreds of volunteers for these events. And he said, hey, man, just call Robbins Research when you get home and ask them to send you an application, and you can come back and volunteer, because he literally uses 300 to 400 people every event, because he's got thousands of participants there. And I did. And I think it was 7 weeks later, after I filled out the app, they sent me a letter in the mail and said, Dave Albin, congratulations, you've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins companies in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So there I was. My foot was in the door, and from there I just got involved with the fire team. I started learning all the logistics. In 2000, that was in 95, 96. They hired me as a subcontractor in 96. And then in 2003, Tony asked me to take over all of his Firewalks globally. And not only did he hire me, but he paid for my family to go on the road as well, because I homeschooled, which was beautiful. And then that was 2003, 2005, we set the world record. We went to London and we Firewalked 12,300 people. And then in 2014, my life made another really interesting turn. And that's when Google reached out to us they got a hold of me and said, hey, are you the Dave Albin that does the Firewalks for Tony Robbins? Yeah, what can I do for you? They said, well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you. And so what I found out, there was 148 executives who had gone through a very intense 9-month curriculum. And so what they did from there, they wanted to do the graduation, and then they wanted to have a lunch, and then they wanted to do, like a Firewalk. And I said, well, we can't do a Firewalk, not during the day. However, we could do a glass walk. And they're like, what? A glass walk? You mean walk on broken glass? And I said, yeah. And they're like, ooh, tell us about that. So I did. And We ended up doing 2 glass walks for Google. And then after that, Natalie, my business just took off. I actually retired from Tony in 2014, started my own company, Firewalk Productions. And, after that, Google, I was at NASA, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Remax, Chick-fil-A, the EO organization, Heineken. It just went nuts. And we've been going at it. Well, no pun intended, but we've been going at it hot and heavy ever since.
I love the puns. I love them. That's awesome. Is a glass walk? You got me really intrigued on that.
Well, that's literally where we teach you how to walk on broken glass. Yeah. And I set a world record there too. In 2019, we took the gig to Paris, and we had a client there. We glass walked over 1,500 people.
Wow. So
I'll tell you what's amazing. Get on a plane and go through security checkpoints with 7 suitcases full of glass. That right? I literally had to fill out. I filled out these forms in both English and French and said, "Hey, my name is Dave Firewalk Productions. We're a corporate team building experience. These kits are full of glass. We're going to do a glass walk." I put pictures in it, my website, and I had to put all those in there. And again, both in English and French. So coming and going, that they would look at me like, why would you take a suitcase, 50 pounds of glass, from Charlotte Airport to Paris? So every time we travel, every time I take a glass kit with me, it's always a fun experience, that's for sure.
Oh man, I could just imagine their faces. That's hilarious. Now, some of the benefits that people feel after going through like a firewalk or the glass walk.
Well, if you can walk on glass or you can walk on fire, what else can you do? The bottom line is that we're all driven by fear, right? Fear either dominates us or we dominate it. There's really very little in between there, right? So you have to decide what fear means to you, right? Prior to me getting to the firewalk, fear had taken so many things from me. It was unbelievable. But after the firewalk, instead of forget everything and run, it became face everything and rise. After the firewalk, when we were standing in the celebration end at the Tony Robbins seminar, it was just awesome. You could tell, right? People's their self-belief, their self-worth, and their self-confidence had been raised. It's kind of almost like a near-death experience, literally. And so, once you make that shift and your brain goes, okay, all right, I did it. I walked on fire, coals were 1,000 degrees. So, what else can I do? And then again, the next day when I was part of that group, right. And seeing how we were getting along humanistically, I knew it was life-changing. I knew there was a huge paradigm shift in all these people. And again, that's what led me to it. And then when Google called me, they literally, I had a conversation with 2 of the executives, and they basically told me, they said, look, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a huge marketplace for this. Because when you can take a corporate team and you can take them through an experience like this, and it causes that big of a shift for them to work together and put them all on the same page, if you will, there's a lot of companies that will hire you to do that. Because look at where we are today, right? COVID just knocked the heck out of everybody's companies, right? Because now, everybody was arguing about masks. Everybody's arguing about vaccines. Everybody's arguing about the political platform. Everybody hates this guy. They love this guy. That tears companies apart. And so when that happens, what happens? Production drops. And so CEOs know that, and they know if they don't fix it, that it could cost them millions and in some cases billions. And it's already has. It's doing it now. And so when they hire me, they're like, I'm the fix it guy, right? They come in, they hand me a check and they say, Dave, fix it. Help me. Because what I do is, I do what's called the board break experience and the firewalk at the same time. And here's how we set that up. So basically the board break is a martial arts move. You go to any martial arts studio, they do it all the time with the students. Every time they graduate, they like to get into another belt, they have to break a board. They either have to break it with their hand, their wrist, their elbow, their foot, their knee, whatever. Well, we kind of take that and we reduce it down to the board and what we do with the board, meaning that I have them write something on front of the board they want to move towards. I have them write something on back of the board that they need to move away from. And then I invite them to write anybody's name on that board that they're in conflict with, which means that if forgiveness or reconciliation is part of that relationship, put their name on the board. It ends tonight. Stop carrying that around. And then to create the rite of passage, I have them write anybody's name on the board that they've lost. So then it becomes an ancestral type energy about that board break. So then they break the board, right? And then we take them outside. They do the firewalk. We circle them back, and then they get to throw their board into the fire. And then we capture it on video, and then we get pictures of it. And it's just powerful. It's literally probably one of the most powerful events any company can hire somebody to do, because it's that life transformational. People will forget what I said. They'll forget what I did, but they'll never forget how I made them feel, right? A year from now or 10 years from now, what are they going to remember? Are they going to remember Dave Albin? Probably not. Are they going to remember his board break and his firewalk? Oh, you better believe they are. Right. So when you do that in a group and everybody shares in that energy and that experience, it goes up together and unites them. They become more humanistic and they start playing well together. And when they play well together and they work together well, production goes up. Pretty simple.
Yeah, I want to mention something you said that really stood out to me, and something that I live by in my business is that they're going to remember how you made them feel, right? Yep. So I know 100%. In my VA agency, a lot of times we'll get potential clients that will kind of explain, how frustrated or a hard time they've had, with virtual assistants in the past. But then they'll mention maybe one they had, and you can hear they sigh and they go, oh man, I had this really great virtual assistant that made my life easier in this way. They don't mention their name because they probably forgot, but they remember that feeling. And that's that I think that is in all of our business, no matter what we do in one way or another, we're usually helping others. So making sure that we're focusing on that they are feeling whatever we want to make them feel. I think that's something we lose in business. We get so tied up in like the sales and like you said, like even like coworkers and all these different things. If we just really focus on the legacy that we want to leave on how we make others feel, I think could really like transform not only our lives, but other people's lives as well.
Well, you know what we know? We know today that what doesn't challenge us doesn't change us. You're not going to sit your fanny in a seminar and sit there all day and change your life. You're going to have to get up and do something. Like one of my favorite experiences, especially with the women, is the arrow break and the glass walk. And I combine them both. So the arrow break is where you put an arrow here in the soft spot of your neck, and then you put the other end of it up on a wall and you step through and you break it. A lot of women, especially if there's been abuse in their life, this is a very, very, very powerful experience because, again, if anybody's ever had their hands around their neck or they've been choked or something like this experience, that arrow break experience, can release them and set them free of that. So when we combine, again, that arrow break with the glass walk experience, I've seen countless women have breakthroughs right there on the spot. So we love comboing both of the experience at the same time. Firewalking logistically, it isn't always possible, right? So that's where the glass walk comes in because it's real easy. I just cruise in and I have a suitcase. I open the suitcase. I just did my local Chamber of Commerce. I do their leadership program for them every year. And you just walk in and the tables were set up in kind of a C shape, right? And I go out and I put that suitcase of that glass and I set it out there in the middle for all of them to stare at it. Well, they don't know what's going on. They don't know what I'm doing. In fact, when I did Google, they said, hey, we're not going to tell them what you're doing. In fact, the night before I did Google, we're out to dinner and we've got the University of North Carolina is there as well because they helped design the curriculum for that particular program. And so we're sitting there and one of the girls is like, hey, Dave, can we ask you a question? And I'm like, sure, we'll ask anything you want. And they said, well, we'd like to do something during the event and we just want to make sure it would be okay with you. And I said, sure, what is it? And she said, well, there's a movie called Die Hard. And there's a scene where Bruce Willis has to run across the broken glass and his feet are all bloody. She said, would you be okay if we showed that before we bring you on stage? And I'm like, you're my kind of people. Absolutely. Let's scare the hell out of them. Sure. Yeah. Right. And they said, well, then there's one other thing. Would you be okay as we're bringing you on stage? Could we play that Annie Lennox song, Walking on Broken Glass? And so, they did both. So, and I do that. I tell my clients, I go, look, this is what Google did. You can do whatever you want. Here's what NASA did. Right. So, we can kind of mix and match it. It really doesn't matter as long as you get them through the experience.
That is super cool. Now, have you ever worked with like virtual companies? So I have been a big promoter for like virtual retreat, not virtual retreats, but retreats in person with your virtual team, because I think it's so beneficial. We're working behind computers every day. I'm in the process of actually creating an in-person event for my team because we don't see each other in person. I've actually
Right.
only met two of my staff so far, which
Oh,
is
wow.
crazy, in person in real life. And so, have you ever had a team that worked virtually, but then they met in person?
Yeah, I've done both. Actually,
Yeah.
they worked virtually and we did a virtual board break.
Oh, wow.
We had, I think we had close to 900 virtual people. There was a company out of Austin, Texas, and they set up a big studio for the event. And then we came in and then I made videos and instructed everybody what to do. Now, basically, a couple ways to do it. They can go down to Lowe's or Home Depot and have the wood that I tell them and have it cut a specific size, or if the company's okay with mailing the board out to the company employees, that works better because you only need a foam, packet. You put the board in there and you put instructions in it, and you mail it off. So it's actually pretty cheap rather than having the employee, leave their house, go down to Lowe's, get somebody to cut it, give them all the instructions. The bandwidth. It's just a lot easier to mail all the employees the board itself, and then you do it virtually, like we're doing here right now, right? And then, yes, I have had, in fact, I got one coming up where it's a virtual and everybody's been working remotely, and now they're all going to come together at one time. They're going to meet for the first time. They're going to connect, humanistically. One of the things I'm going to do in addition, and we're actually doing the glass walk and the arrow break for that particular event. The other thing I'm going to do is what's called the heart hug. And it's such a beautiful experience. So basically what it is that normally we hug, we go from right to right, this way. Well, I have them go the other way so that their heart sits on the other person's heart. So your hearts are like, they're almost touching, right? And then I have them close their eyes, and then I take them through 3 cleansing breaths. So I have them take a really deep diaphragmatic breath and hold it. And I just have them hold it, hold it, hold it. Now exhale. And then I do it again. And typically when they're coming in or out of that second diaphragmatic breath, the magic takes place. Their hearts start beating at the same time. It's so cool. I mean, it's a magical experience. So I'll go around and do that. I can kind of tell after a while of, is everybody connected? Is everybody's hearts kind of beating together at the same time? So it may take 5, 6, I don't care how many times it takes, as long as I get everybody connected. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, magical experience. Because here's the thing, when we're up here, we're arguing about masks and whatever, right? Well, I love Donald Trump. Well, I hate Donald Trump. Well, you know what? Your heart doesn't care. It wants nothing to do with that because it doesn't drive that way, right? So when you get them all beating at the same time and you bring people back up to that humanistic level, everything changes, everything shifts, because we come back to who we are, loving, kind, nurturing human beings. And we all know that if you help enough people get what they want in life, you always get what you want. And so that's the beauty of doing something like that. So, they spend a couple hours with me, and, they're the whole shift and everything, the paradigm shift happens. And then everybody's back on the same page working together as one.
That's amazing. And I love the benefits because I can just imagine how the companies flourish after that, because all of that hurt and the anxiety and the negative feelings are kind of washed away in that moment. And so when you go back to work, it's like almost like a peaceful calm, and like everyone's ready to, do good in the world and do good for their company. And I think that's a really amazing thing that you do. How can people find you?
It's real simple. Just go to firewalkadventures.com. It's all one word, firewalkadventures.com. Everything's there. My calendar's there. I'm very accessible. I have an academy coming up in October where people actually come and they come to my academy. I teach them all these different experiences. I teach them how to facilitate. I teach them how to start their own business. I have trainers and coaches and entrepreneurs and business owners and, all walks of life come to the academy. We do 9 at a time. And I had someone back out yesterday. So we've got 1 spot left for that. So if you get to the website, firewalkadventures.com, top left corner, it says the academy. You can go there and then we'll get you some information.
Thank you so much for coming, Dave. I've had an amazing time talking to you, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
You got it. All right, guys. Thanks. Take care.